All right. Well, today we wanted to go over the data collection and the data collection tool and why we pull together all of this data for the National SBEEP. And the first thing I want to do is share my screen. And I'm on the National Small Business Environmental Assistance Program website. And if you go under SBEEP resources, there's the tab for annual report. And yes, it is time to file your annual report data. And we have a few tools to make that easier. But first, I want to say thank you to Dan Sowery and his team from Ohio for hosting the SurveyMonkey, which is our data collection tool. And we have had it up for just a little while now, and we will be hopefully having all the data collected by the beginning of March. And Dan, would you like to speak to how many different states have begun submitting their data?
Sure, Belinda. So it looks like we have, these are the folks that have, like you said, started to submit or have submitted their final report. So we have Alaska, 2 entries or 2 programs from Florida, 1 from Georgia, 1 from Idaho, and that's you, Belinda, right? Yeah. Kentucky, Louisiana, New Hampshire, and then 2 from Utah.
Excellent. That's great for just getting this posted so recently. And we'll be sending a shout out to all of those states that have gotten their data in as we go through this next month. Now, to get your data in and make that a little bit easier, we have a couple tools for you. And the first on my pointer is an Excel spreadsheet. And it is a very basic spreadsheet, but you can put in your data for each year because, as most of you know, our questions are usually the same from year to year. And so that way, if you like to track the trends over time and see what's been happening in your own program, then that Excel spreadsheet is available. And then there's also a fillable PDF. So if you prefer to put all of your answers into that PDF form and save that for the future, and then use it for filling out the online form, that works great too. I think the key is to find a way to pull all of your data together before you go to this section where it says fill out the online form. And one of the really nice things that started last year is that if you somehow get stuck where you have to leave, you don't lose your data. You're able to save it and come back again to it later. So let's go ahead and click on that form. And you see a nice description of what we're doing, collecting data for the annual report. Oh, which makes me think, I'm going to go back. I want to show you what the annual report is and how your data is used. So let's take a look at this. Now, Nancy Larson and Allison Crowther from Kansas really helped pull this together. And so all of the data that you submit is aggregated. We don't call out any one individual program. So you'll see we give a little explanation of who the SBEEPs are, how the programs are designed, and who we work with, in case someone's not sure the types of businesses we work with. And then here's some of that data. You'll see that the majority of our assistance is through phone calls and emails. And then our next largest chunk is permit assistance. You can also see in 2020 that we served 2.4 million clients, had over 800,000 online resource visits, and over 2 million publications, and 70,000 webinar or workshop attendees. So you can really see the impact that the small business environmental assistance programs are making. And then this is a 2-page document, a front and a back. And on the back, you can see some client testimonials, a case study, and an idea that in addition to AIR, which obviously our programs are created by Section 507 of the Clean Air Act, so they're all AIR programs, but some of us get to do multimedia. And so this shows you what other areas we work on. And then this was last year's case study. So I wanted you to be able to see where your data is going. And now back to our form. So let's start. And the first questions, I mean, they're very easy. Are you reporting data from a calendar year or a fiscal year? We want your data, but we want this to be easy for you. So if you're on a fiscal year, just simply say so. Which state or territory you're submitting from, and then your contact information. And you'll notice that Dan mentioned that there were 2 separate submissions from several states. Sometimes there's more than one SBEEP program. So this is all information that we can all very easily fill out. And now here comes the first one where we have to look up a number. And it's our annual budget. And it's for your SBEEP program, for your SBO, which is your ombudsman, and if your CAP has a budget. So once you have that number, again, is that a calendar year or a fiscal year? Or this not available is if the budget is not pulled out and there's no real way to figure out exactly how much money is specifically for SBEEP. Okay, the next question is on staffing. We want the number in FTEs, which is full-time equivalents. And you'll notice that our programs, they vary in how many people. We have programs that have 0.1 FTE and programs that have 10 full-time equivalents. So just put in that number, even if it's in a decimal, for FTEs. And then the next question is, do you have a compliance advisory panel? Every program is required by Section 507 of the Clean Air Act to have a CAP, but that doesn't mean that we all do. So just let us know, do you actually have a CAP? Do you have something that's equivalent that's acting as a CAP? Or your program doesn't have anything? And then just because you have a CAP, they may not actually be active. So if you have a CAP, again, let us know if they're active or not. Now, question number 9, where's the program housed? Are you in an environmental agency, an economic agency such as Department of Commerce, a small business development center, a part of a university, or somewhere else. And if you are somewhere else, please put in exactly where you're located. And now question 10 is, if you are in an environmental agency, what media apply? And if you're not in an environmental agency, then not applicable. So now we're going to start getting into a little more data, the outreach and the technical assistance. So the last question asked what your agency may be working on, but this question specifically asks, is your program air only, or do you offer multimedia assistance? And just click on all that apply. Now here's where the numbers come in, and this is where you've taken the time to pull all of this data together. And question number 12 is the count for each type of assistance. And remember, the next question is going to ask for attendees and how many people were reached. So how many site visits you did, permits assisted with, and phone calls, emails, and other assistances that you provided. And then the total. Now, in question number 13, we say, how many mailings or newsletters or publications did you put out? How many webinars or workshops did you put on? Did you comment on state or federal rules? And then were there some other type of outreach activities that weren't counted in these previous three categories? Now that's how many, let's say, newsletters. Let's say you put out 8 newsletters. Question number 14 asks you, what was the reach? How much audience did you get for that? So the example that they're using here is that this program had 8 newsletters and they had 2,000 subscribers. Then they also had 3 mailings that went out to 100 different businesses. So the total in that first line is actually 16,300. So let's say you put on 3 webinars last year and each had 50 attendees. So your number here would be 150 for your audience. And sometimes we get a little hung up as we start to go through that question 12, 13, and 14, but we've kept it the same each year. And so hopefully we should recall how that works and go through it smoothly. But we are always here if there is a question. So number 15, website access. Just put in your website address, please, and the number of page views. And this is something that some of us have easier access than others. I know I have to send a request for this information. And then social media. We've got quite a few platforms listed here. Click all that apply. And then if you have a different platform under other, please type in what it is. We found out a few years ago that quite a few programs were using Instagram, and so we added that to the list. Okay, 16 questions down out of a total of 21, and you've gotten most all of the data that it took some effort to collect already in. So let's cruise to the finish. Question 17 asks for a quote that can be put into the annual flyer. Now you might be thinking, I just got all the data in. I'm so glad I am done. But please don't skip over these next questions. When we have that case study and those quotes from businesses, that really engages the audience in the annual report. And we want to make sure we get in a wide variety of those quotes. The same with question 18. Do you have a case study? Now, I really ask you to stop and think about what might be a good example. If you're not sure, say, hey, would this work? We tend to get the same states that will submit a case study, and we don't want it to look like those are the only states in the whole 50 states that are really active. We want to get a representation from all of the different states and the types of businesses and the types of problems that you're solving. Now, question number 19 was a new one we added just a few years ago. And that's if you're collecting data on your program on some type of environmental outcome, such as emissions reductions or compliance rates, please put in the summary of that information here, because that's good data that we can also help to share. And then question 20, basically, if you have anything that you didn't feel like you got the chance to share, or maybe it wasn't as clear, this is your place to put it. And now the final question is a brand new question. And I'm going to ask Lisa Aschenbrenner Hunt to tell us about question 21.
Yeah, thanks, Belinda. So some of you may or may not know that the NSC just last year decided to form a small work group focusing on environmental justice. It's something that EPA is focusing a lot on, and there's been just a lot of talk about EJ and incorporating it into environmental issues. So we are just exploring right now how the small business programs and the ombudsman can engage with EJ communities or with the EJ issues in general. So what we're looking for is just if your program has done anything that where you're specifically targeting some kind of environmental justice goal. So that can be, anything that you think applies to environmental justice. And we just like a really short kind of overview of what you're doing. If you're using a specific tool, we'd love to hear about that. If you're targeting your outreach to a specific group, engaging, specific communities or community groups or whatever it might be, anything that you're doing that you really believe is focused on environmental justice, we would really love to hear that because it helps us. Part of what our work group is doing right now is just trying to figure out what can we do, what might we do, how does small business assistance impact environmental justice communities or disproportionately burdened communities. And is there more that we can do to help the businesses in those communities and to help forward those goals while still helping our businesses? So we're just asking for just a little description of if you're doing anything on that front. We would really love to hear about it. It's going to help us a lot for just kind of getting ideas of what we can do. And it ultimately, we want to create some resources on the National SB website for all of you to help you engage in environmental justice issues. So anything that you can give us will be much appreciated.
Thank you, Lisa. And
Thank
so
you.
one of the things that you hear from from Lisa is we're using a lot of this data to help our own programs. And I was going to ask Nancy to just take a moment and kind of tell us the history of this annual report so that you can see how valuable it is to the SBEEP community.
Sure, I would be happy to. And if you want to toggle back to the screen that you were at before on the website, I do believe we did put a short history there, but basically the history of this is in about 2000, yeah, there we go, about 2015, we started to put together this information for the annual report. And prior to that, EPA had been gathering this information and produced a very, very comprehensive report to Congress. Well, they stopped doing that in about, I believe it was around 2010, 2012. And so then no report was going in for several years. So we picked it back up. We tried to simplify the form and then do this extra kind of outreach to with the effort to get more people involved. And we're typically getting anywhere from about 35 states all the way up to, I believe our high point one year was about 44. And so we would love this year to break that 44 record and have more states report, because obviously the more states that report, the better representation we have as a group for all of our programs, right? The better data we have too. So that's kind of the history of this. We also took that annual report format and put it into a 2-page flyer. So it would be easy for people to send off to their state representatives, their regulatory agencies, and then to the most of our regional reps have been sending this off to the regional EPA administrator. We're hoping that our ASBO office is also using it to promote to all the different groups at EPA. But it is no longer going to Congress. So that activity stopped in the early 2000s. And so this is our kind of replacement. So we don't lose all this data. You all are doing great work. You work hard every day. You are helping small businesses succeed. And if you don't collect and document your efforts, then how can we tell the story? So I know you all have certain amounts of documentation you have to do, some more, some less, but it's so important that you have a good documentation of what you do so that you can then report it nationally and we can share those stories. Does that kind of wrap it up, Belinda?
Yes, thank you very much, Nancy. And
sure.
Does anyone have any specific questions on a question within the data collection survey or a general question?
I'm not seeing any, just to kind of help you out here, Belinda, but
Okay.
I would like to point out one other thing.
Please.
And that is question 19. And I know you're out of the survey right now, or the tool right now,
I
but
can move us back to it.
okay. So and I'm going to ask you probably to toggle a little bit, but question 19 has to do with collecting outputs and outcomes, right? And so outputs are kind of beans, that there's a lot of beans that we collect, so to speak, in this report. But question 19 really would like for you to report your outcome. So what actually happened as a result of your technical assistance? And a lot of times you help somebody with an air permit. They received an air permit, they got into compliance. Do you account for that? Because that is a change of behavior. That is an increase in compliance rates. And if you're also working with them, maybe it is a 6X or a 6H client, and or a different painting coating client, and they are going to change their technology, their spray guns, right? They're getting more paint on the part, less overspray. They're saving on raw material too. Those are all emission or hazardous material reductions. Is there any way you can capture that? Those are all outcomes because we're reducing what is emitted to the environment, right? Same with hazardous waste. So that one change can reduce hazardous materials. It can reduce emissions to the environment. It can change and reduce the hazardous waste that's going out the door. There's one other metric there too, right? Finances. And so that one change can add up to a lot of different metrics that we would love for you to capture. I know it takes time, but just think about the argument you can make to your regulator and your regulated community with regard to your services with a success story like that, and data like that. Besides, your company would probably love to see that data. So that's kind of my plug for question 19. We like Belinda said, we have kind of some of the usual states answering this question, and some of these states do P2 work, so they're used to really getting environmental outcomes. If you're wanting to learn more, though, we do have a resource for you right off of the page that Belinda was on before. So Belinda, I'll get you to toggle back to that web page, if you will, the annual report web page. And you're doing a great job. So where you saw the drop down on that SB resources, and then also to the left side, you will see the metrics page. So if we toggle to the metrics page, this is where we've got a couple of different tools and a webinar that features 3 different states and how they collect outcome data. How do you evaluate? This is another way you can also get quotes. So this is a win-win for your program, and it's also a win that we want you to share with us nationally so that we can share that information out. We can learn from you, and others can learn from you too. And that's with that said, that's all I have to share.
And we'll just thank everyone for contributing their data. And I think that wraps it up.
Yeah, we might say when it is due again.
Okay, so I know that the first page of the Survey Monkey says March 31st, but we were rather slow getting it out last year. And so we pushed that deadline out. But what we're really aiming for is March 1. So you have more than a month left to pull that data together. And it, depending on how much effort to pull the data together, and that's why we provided a bare bones Excel tool and a nice fillable PDF tool. Once you actually go to put it into the Survey Monkey, it shouldn't take you more than 20 minutes. So it's a little bit of our time, but it's data that you're going to want to have for your program and to share with us. And it's very worthwhile. And I really want to encourage everyone to get their data in, and hopefully we get a record number of SBEAT programs participating this year. So thank you.
And there's a couple of questions there, Belinda, that I could read to you and you could maybe answer.
Okay.
And one is they wanted to know where they could find the downloadable PDF again. So you might just toggle to that annual report page.
I will. So on that annual report, if you come down to it, instructions in the center paragraph, there is the Excel and the fillable PDF. I've got my mouse on them right now.
Yeah, so right there, you can just download that. And then if you have Adobe software, it actually just, Reader, we set this up so you should be able just to fill in the fields. You don't have to have the special version of Adobe to edit that and fill it out. And there's another question here, and the question was, is there a way just to upload the PDF so people don't have to go online and fill out the form? And I would say no, there isn't.
No.
Yeah, we'd like you to put that data in. We don't really want to put your data in for you.
I agree with you, Nancy. We're really glad that we do have the SurveyMonkey tool, and that Ohio's hosting that and being able to pull that data together. But if people would just take those few minutes to move that data onto that SurveyMonkey tool, then that really helps us so that we can pull this annual report together.
Sorry, this is Jeremy. Just to clarify my question, like our program, we have client testimonials that have already been done during the time period that are already in like Word document PDF forms, where a client wrote a letter to some of our state representatives and said, hey, we love this service. Bravo, keep it going. So it's kind of hard to copy and paste it into that form, if you understand what I mean.
Yes, I understand that completely. What I would do is I would just put a note in there that you will be submitting that separately. Okay. And then you can email it to either Nancy Larson or Dan Sowery or myself, or all three of us.
Got you. Yeah, the other thought I had is maybe to upload those case studies or testimonials into like a Google Drive, and then just maybe include a hyperlink to where they're located so that the annual report group can then access it, and you can do with what you want to do with it, if that makes sense too.
Oh, that's a good idea. That's worth considering.
Okay,
yeah, and
thank you.
I think you can put, Jeremy, a hyperlink right in the survey. So where you're filling out the field, that would be perfect. Yeah. If it's posted.
Got you. Otherwise, we'll just try to pass along to you, like Belinda said, either to one of you that are organizing it. So thank you.
You bet. So in the past, just with regard to the case studies, we have featured case studies, and anyone pipe in if I miss something. But we have featured case studies from Jeremy's program there in Pennsylvania. We have featured case studies from Dan's program in Ohio, from Kansas, and I don't remember what the other state might have been Wisconsin. So we're looking for case studies from some of those other states. So we would love to have that information. And this could be, someone that you are nominating maybe for an award this year under the NSC Small Business Awards Program. That's where I know I grabbed data for the company that was featured in a case study one year from Kansas. So It's not like that work, you have to reinvent the wheel or any text. So just make it easy on yourself. What we'll do is, if we need more information, we'll just tag you and we'll tease it out, but we'll get it cleaned up and run through our editor and everything.
Great plug, Nancy, for getting in, the nominations for those awards. And again, that, you don't have to reinvent the wheel, use what you've already submitted.
Can you explain question 10 again?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
I was asking if you could go over question 10.
Question 10, yes, let me go back in.
And while she does that, Cassandra, could I ask you, we have not met you before. Could we ask you where you're from?
Yes, I'm sitting in for Mississippi.
Okay, well, great. Well, welcome. We're so glad you're with us. And I think there was one other person, maybe Kim or someone else who maybe is brand new.
So on question number 10, it's asking if your program is in an environmental agency, because just before on that question, we asked, where is your SB program? For instance, mine is in the SBDC, and Dan's is in an environmental agency. And so if you are in an environmental agency, then are you doing air? Are you doing waste? Are you doing water? And then, since I am not in an environmental agency, I would click that this question would not be applicable to me. And does that answer your question, Cassandra?
So it's asking what media you assist, what businesses that you assist in those medias. Is that what it's asking?
Yeah, so in
and I might clarify something for you, Belinda, if I could.
Yeah, and I was going to move over here to question 11, which is if even, are you air only or are you assisting in other media in 11? And then Nancy, I'll go back and you can clarify on question 10.
Yeah, question 10. So Cassandra, if you are in an environmental agency, so Mississippi DEQ, let's say, and what we're asking in 10 is, are you in the division of air, or are you in the division of waste or division of water, or maybe you work for, like in Kansas, our person is working for the head of the agency. So she is not under air, waste, or water. So in this case, she would put other, and she would put, under the bureau, under the agency director. But if you and most of our folks who are in a DEQ or an environmental health and safety agency, most of them are in air. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, it does. I just wanted to